Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. Todd Caputo here. It's episode number 4, and I'm here with Rob Bacharach. Did I pronounce that right, Rob?
You did. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm here with Rob, and Rob is in Charlotte, where I'm located as well. And the reason why I chose to interview him and share what he does with you, because I ran into him at a trade show. We'll talk about it in a few minutes. And I found what he did really interesting, and I find it very necessary for people in the automobile business. And with that being said, hopefully you feel the same, right? Like hopefully you feel the exact same way that I do, that this is important. But I think it's important for people in the car business to have financial literacy, I guess is probably the best word to describe it. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce Rob. Rob, if you want to introduce yourself, and then let's get rolling.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks, Todd. I appreciate you having me on here. And yeah, I think we met. It's funny. I feel like a SotoCon should have been a year ago because we're coming up for the next one, but
Yeah.
it wasn't. It was only like 7 or 8 months ago. It feels like so.
Yeah. Are you going?
Um,
Are you going next week, by the way?
I am. Yep.
Good.
Yep.
So I'll
I'll be.
see you there. It's gonna
Yep.
be great.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to it. So, but yeah, we met out there at a SodaCon. My name's Rob Bacharach. I'm a certified financial planner, and the name of my company is Automotive Wealth. And we are a financial planning and education firm for. We specialize in working with people who make their living and make all their money selling cars. So that's what brings me here today.
And that was what really intrigued me when I met you last year in Baltimore at SodaCon. I don't know if we got introduced or we were just having cocktails and just kind of ran into each other or what happened. But when you told me what you did, I'm like, man, I'll tell you what, I wish that I had known you when I owned car dealerships, because when I did own my stores, and then I saw it when I worked at Sonic as well, and I also see it now working with dealer clients, is there's a lot of people that start out in the car business and they are amazing success stories, right? Like these are guys and girls that start out literally in a lot of cases washing cars, running parts, working maybe in an office position or something like that. And all of a sudden they end up getting into typically car sales, right? And car sales can lead to a job in F&I, or car sales can lead to a sales manager job, or eventually a GM job. And what I found is, and you could probably back me up when I say this, is people start making money and they don't know how to manage it. Like they don't know how to budget it. And I saw it all the time when I had my businesses, because I had salespeople and managers that made a lot of money, a lot of it, and most of them, honestly, probably didn't manage it the way that they should. I tried to give them advice the best that I possibly could, as the dealer and the owner, as their friend, but a lot of them didn't listen. So that was why I thought, wow, a guy like this that specializes in auto, I got to have him. I got to interview this guy and share this with the audience out there. How did you end up getting into this? Weren't you in the car business before? I thought you told me that.
I, I was, yeah, absolutely. So pretty, I think typical story of most business owners in the automotive industry, right? Other than, dealer principals, but a lot of guys, they fell into car sales for one reason or another and loved the industry, but something led them to doing something else, but still being in the industry. And so I'm another one of those stories. And so when I was younger, just really didn't really know what I was going to do, and probably made some mistakes along the way, and one thing or another led me to an opportunity to be able to go sell cars at one of Mr. Hendrick's new Mercedes-Benz dealership down in Charlotte, and I remember my first thought being like, I'm gonna go, this is why I'm gonna go sell cars. I've never even sat in a new Mercedes before, much less
Yeah.
like driven them and sold them. And so I had that opportunity. I absolutely loved it. I ended up doing that for almost 6 years. I sold cars. I was in F&I. I was climbing the ladder, if you will. I loved it. I was having a ton of fun, but something inside of me, I had always wanted to own my own business in some capacity. And I felt as though I had the ability to be able to serve at a larger level and scale. than just being at the car dealership. And so that led me to a career in financial planning and investment management. And so I started doing that. I got a lot of my first clients from friends and colleagues from the dealerships. But I continued just working with a broader array of clients. And then after a while, I started working with so many folks and families that make their living at the dealership selling cars that eventually, a couple of years ago now, I said, these folks, I think they really need their own brand altogether. I think, and have a whole entire service offering that is just built specifically for the people in the retail automotive industry, because those folks have, from my own experience and then from working with these people for years, I mean, it was very apparent that we have our own very unique set of challenges that they need help and advice on in relation to their money, that just, it's not the same as if you're just a W-2 employee that works a 9-to-5 job from Monday through Friday and get a salary. Like, it's just not the same thing. And then it's not even the same thing as maybe just somebody else who even is at least on commission, right? We all know lots of guys and folks that work on commission, but it's still not the same thing as a life and a career at the dealership. It has its own dynamic altogether. And so I love being into the dealership. I love talking about the guys see what the deals are going on and how the months are going and all that stuff. And so it just led me to start a whole firm altogether geared specifically for those folks.
And it's strictly for people. So you deal strictly with people that work at car dealerships in variable operations, sales, F&I. What about like technicians, people that, people in fixed operations?
Yeah, so I'll say I open it up to everybody. I don't discriminate inside of the dealership. I will say that the majority of my clients, though, are on the variable ops side.
Gotcha.
But I have guys that are service advisors or fixed op managers and folks like that. Because, everyone's compensation inside of the dealership is based on performance and ups and downs of the month. And so it really does go throughout the dealership, but most folks are on the variable ops side.
So you've been doing this for a while, and you probably have seen some people in the industry that, in 2019 they were making this, and then all of a sudden in 2021 they're making this, and then in 2022, it's like, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So, how did you get through that with people, right? Like, how did you try to have them stay under control with how they're living their life, budgeting their money? Because I understand people in this business very well, because I am one of them, right? And
Yeah.
you're dealing with a lot of A-type personalities that like to work hard, because there is no 40-hour work week in the car business, and they also like to play hard too, and they like their toys, guys and girls, right? So, like, how do you deal with that? I want to hear. I'm curious.
Yeah. So I will definitely not even hesitate to say, for the folks that were already working with me, let's just say pre-COVID, it was a lot easier than the folks that were coming on board, that have come on board in let's say the last couple of years here, because they had already kind of gotten into the program and the way that I work with my clients. It's not just, hey, giving me your money and I go invest it for you and call me if you have questions. It's behavioral finance, it's coaching, it's education, it's you're telling me what you really want to accomplish and what's important to you in life. Well, to make that happen, it's a lot more than just picking stocks and bonds, And so for those folks that had already started to shift their mindset about how much to spend and how much to save and things like that, it was a lot easier. But for folks that we hadn't engaged in that type of a relationship with yet, I mean, there's a hurdle to overcome there and an adjustment to make. But I will say, it really was staggering. I mean, the amount of money that people were making, and a lot of the folks that we worked with even were coming to us already kind of saying like, hey, I've already blown more money than I even know what to do with. And I've realized that I already have the new TVs and the new cars, and I bought my third Rolex, and and I got a promotion from sales manager to GSM or GSM to GM and so on and so forth. And so a lot of the times they're actually coming to us kind of already knowing how much that they've spent that maybe they should or shouldn't have, and that they're coming to us kind of ready to say, hey, here's where things are at right now, and here's what I want to accomplish. And then my approach to that is I step in and I push the guys to save as much as they can and then work backwards from there. Right. And I found that to be pretty successful for a lot of the folks that have had that type of experience over the last few years where their incomes just have jumped drastically. Is, they all like to be pushed. They all like to win. They all like to compete. So we kind of bring that into the financial advising process a little bit. They say, hey, well, I think I can save this much. And I say, well, your cash flow says you really could save this much. So why don't we do this much instead? And if we need to back it down, we'll back it down, right? And then the same thing goes, whether it's the 401k or it's deciding how much to spend on a real estate investment property, whatever it is. We take a deep dive approach so we know where their limits are so they don't get stuck in a bad spot. But we definitely want to push them to the upper end of things, knowing that they're probably going to be okay, right? And things are going to, should trend even if we flatten out or pull back. We're planning for that. And we make adjustments if we need to. But that's just one of the ways that we go about that, is kind of pushing them, inside the planning sessions as well.
So how does this work, right? At the end of the day, I mean, how do you get into a dealership? Does the dealership call you and say, hey, Rob, come on in? Or are these relationships that you've built over time? I mean, I can tell you this: if I still own stores, I would want you to be there, right?
Yeah.
Or do you get any kind of like roadblocks saying, no, we don't want you here, or anything like that? Or and then that's number one. And number two, do you just handle like here in Charlotte, or like are you regional, or tell me about your where you serve as well.
Yeah. So first off, we can serve anywhere across the country, really.
You're licensed all across 50 states.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Our firm's SEC registered, and so we literally can go anywhere. And especially, I'll talk a little bit about this, but from just an advice giving standpoint, yeah, I mean, it's you're not limited state by state, right? Like you are with some sort of like insurance regulations and things like that. So
yeah,
so we can work anywhere. We do, obviously, the bulk of where we've been growing most is right here in Charlotte, because this is where I have a ton of connections and things like that. But the way that folks get in touch with me most recently, it's just kind of been through word of mouth or me reaching out to a GM to say, hey, I was just over at these stores and he said to give you a call, or we had a great experience here. You open to a conversation, that sort of thing. I'm really honestly just now starting to move more of the outbound marketing to let folks know what we do and where we're at as we ramp up the whole service model. So, but we've got a great website brand new website online that we've built out with tons of free resources on there for folks. I've got a whole separate page that's literally just a library of guides and educational materials that people can go to. So if folks are looking for a taste of like, what does this guy really do, or what kind of information can I get from him, I put a ton of information online. That's, it's one of the biggest things we hear from our clients and folks we talk to is it's just such a challenge to just get the answer I need. I just need an answer. And there's so many resources to choose from out there. How do I know which one to go with? Well, I'm trying to build out a system that folks can access. They know it's kind of already been filtered down for what they do in life. And it's already kind of mapped out for like, if you're in this situation in automotive industry and retail sales at this level, looking to try and figure out your next investment, well, here's a guide for that person, right? So it's kind of already filtered down. So people can get in touch with us. However, we have a website. They can call me, word of mouth. I mean, it's the automotive industry, right? So a ton of it is word of mouth, but we're starting to do more outbound marketing to let us know where,
gotcha.
Let everybody know where we're at.
So I get in touch with you, and I have you either meet me. I would probably think outside of the dealership is my guess, right? Because inside the store is probably not the best place to talk about people's personal financial that kind of stuff. Like they're there to sell cars, and it's not their time. So I'm thinking it's outside the dealership, somewhere private on their own time, hopefully, right? And walk me through that conversation. What does it look like? So say I'm Todd and I'm selling cars at Hendrick Mercedes on Independence, right? And
Yep.
I'm making, 110 grand this year or whatever. And I started out, making 60 or 70. Like, walk me through what you do.
Yep. Yeah, and that's a great example because I'll be at one of the Hendrick guys with them on Friday down there at one of the independent stores. So,
Yeah.
so I'll start by clarifying. There's two sides to this whole deal. There's really the dealership side of it, and what we can do for dealerships and their employees, and then there's the personal financial planning side of it.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay,
Like
go ahead.
Todd wants advice about Todd's money. The dealership side of it comes from mainly three parts. It's one, it's 401k management. So if you have a 401k plan that you need managed or revamped or looked at the fee structure and things like that, we do that. The other part of it is just bring us in just for group education sessions where I'll come in and I'll just talk to an hour and maybe we'll do 2 sessions so you can get your variable ops in and, half your variable ops team in the first part of the day and the other half of the variable ops team in the second half of the day. And I'll just come and do kind of current event, market education sort of stuff, whatever's going on in the world. Or that could look like us coming in for the day just to sit and do one-on-one stuff with folks, which I'll talk about. And then the third one, so it's the 401k stuff, it's financial education. And then the third one is executive compensation plans. So dealerships that are starting to have GMs that have been with them for a really, really long time. They don't want to lose these guys. They know the market is really competitive right now, especially with lots of turnover and acquisitions and all the M&A thing that's been going on in there. So there's certain types of comp plans that we can help them set up to motivate both employees to want to stay, but then also put a little bit of kind of a vesting and skin in the game for the employee themselves without giving away stock ownership. So
if I'm a dealer and I want to bring in like an executive GM and let him or her have some partial ownership, like, can you help me set up like phantom stock, like things like that, or no?
Yeah, so we can do that. A lot of what we do, and we find what, if you want to go that route, that's great. A lot of conversations I've had just with actually business owners in general, whether it's with automotive or not, is that business owners are looking for ways to get those employees and retain them without giving up stock ownership.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's certain types of comp plans that you can make that happen through. That's a similar type of compensation without actually having to give up ownership shares.
Gotcha.
So there's things. So that's kind of on the dealership side. It's still very employee based. And then there's we do financial planning, full comprehensive one-on-one advice for employees, right? For people who make their living at the dealerships.
Personally, one-on-one.
Yeah, exactly. Like what? Hey, your family, what do you got going on? We'll cover your investments, your insurance, estate planning, cash flow, retirement income, all that stuff, all in one, tax management, all in one spot.
See, what frustrates me is with our education system, not everywhere, but in a lot of places, is financial literacy is not really taught like it should be. And it should really start in high school, right? And in college, and it's not taught. I mean, they're pushing credit cards on kids, right? Kids start earning money, at the age of, call it 14, 15, 16, depending on when they start working. And some kids don't start working until they're like in their, mid 20s, because they didn't have to work or didn't work because they were doing sports or whatever when they were getting educated.
Yeah.
But they're not taught any financial literacy. In a lot of cases, their parents don't always know either. Some do and some don't. But then they come in, and it doesn't matter how much money they're making. It doesn't matter if somebody's making, 30, 40 grand a year, or they're making 300 a year. You got to know how to manage your money. And they're not taught that. And am I right in saying that?
No, you're absolutely right. I was fortunate to get to write a piece for Automotive News about that exact topic. And essentially, it's a lot of people's stress in the world, regardless of the topic, it comes from the stuff that we don't understand, right? And so, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about going on a roller coaster and you don't know how it works and you're scared of it, or it's about managing money. It's like we're scared of what we don't know. And especially for folks that, the below the, whatever you want to call the Gen Xers, Gen Y, whatever, there's a massive gap of a lack of financial education that took place there. Fortunately, now the youngest kids now, they're actually getting more of it than a lot of us did, because they're getting it through social media and things like that. And it's become cooler to talk about investments and things. But for a lot of folks, they don't get any of it. It's not taught in the educational system. And that furthers the impact of stress that they have on themselves about their money, because they don't know how to answer the questions themselves. They don't know who to go to for advice. A lot of guys that we work with, the guys who climbed the ranks of the dealership and made it to, GM and things like, those guys don't come from money, most of them, and so they didn't have the great advice along the way. And so you're absolutely right. And they stress about that stuff because they don't know how to answer it themselves. They don't know where to get the answers. There's massive amounts of information. There's so much choices of where to get your information today. You don't even know where to begin. That stresses you out, and unfortunately it rolls over to performance at work, especially when inflation is up and the economy is like this. And
grosses aren't as fat as they used to be, and you're not making the kind of money you used to make.
Exactly.
And your bills and your debt is higher. Another thing I'll say too is this: financial stress can also cause marital stress for people that are married, or even couples that are living together that are not married, but in a position where they're living together and they're sharing expenses. And look, at you and I know this, right? The car business is extremely stressful, requires a lot of hours. That's already stress enough on any kind of marriage or any kind of relationship, right? We know that. Now you add financial stress in on that, and I've seen it so many times where it destroys a marriage, it destroys a family. It's terrible, right? That's again one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you and share what you do out there in the community, because I would lose sleep at night when I saw people that worked for me going through these sort of things with their marriage and with their finances, right? And you can only warn them so much. And as an owner, like I could only get involved in their business so much unless they really came to me and wanted to talk to me, and I would give them all the time in the world if I could. But a lot of times it's not your business. At the end of the day, you can't butt in. But I would get so sad when I would see separations, divorce, or people that they had children together, they weren't married, and then they broke up, and a lot of it was because of financial stress. So financial literacy is huge. So what kind of education do you do? Like, we don't need to go through all of it, but just give me some of the basic stuff you do with people.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll also, you asked a question like how do we get started with folks and things like that. It kind of goes together. So whether we're meeting in a group setting, like at the dealership, because we're brought in to speak about a topic, or we're just in the one-on-one, sessions of what we do with our clients, I just am a huge believer in the more that the individuals, the clients understand the who, the what, the why of what's going on, and the things that we're talking about, the better the relationship is, the more confident they become about their money and making decisions, the happier they get, stress gets reduced. I mean, it really is a ripple effect. And so really, Todd, the shortest way that I say it is, if it has to do with your money, we teach people about it and give advice about it. So cash flow, debt reduction, tax management, retirement planning, portfolio management, general economic education, right? Like we'll come in and part of what I've done at a few stores not pretty recently is talk about that, do we pay attention to elections and what we do with our own personal money or not, right? Just education around just what's going on in the world, because a big part of what we do is help our clients just filter out we're a filter for our clients, right?
Yeah.
Of the stuff they're bombarded with all day and what's real and what matters. And so if it's got to do with your money, we come in and do educational sessions on it, truly. Sometimes it's more focused.
How many people show, like, if how many people did, and I sorry to interrupt you, but like if there's a meeting at 2:00, right, and it's voluntary for people to come, like how many people typically, you got a lot of people showing up or a very small amount, or what do you typically see?
It's pretty, honestly, it's usually 2/3 to 75% of the folks that are available show up. And we almost always do the sessions on either Mondays or Fridays, because we know that, not everywhere, but most stores, folks have a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday off, right? That's kind of general, like most folks. So we almost always do Mondays or Fridays because everyone's there. And we also try and knock it out like late morning after the morning meeting sort of thing. So we've learned, and this is, I say learn, but it was like right from the get-go of doing this, I already knew these things, right? Like we're not going to schedule this meeting at 3:00 on a Friday on the 29th of the month. Like that's just not, so, the GM scheduling it, they don't even have to have that conversation, right? Because I already know we're looking at the beginning of the month, and I already know we're looking at a Monday or a Friday and things like that. So
that's smart.
So yeah, we'll have good numbers show up. But I tell you what actually has been a really big hit recently. You asked about, how do you start? When do you meet with folks? Well, obviously, we get referrals, and certainly folks reach out and schedule appointments anytime they want. But when it's through an employer, through a dealership, because they brought us in to speak, something that we've actually been doing recently that's been a huge hit is the dealer or the GM will just have me come in and post up in like the conference room, type of place, like a spare room or an extra F&I office or something like that. And I'll just post up in there for the day, and people will just come in and just take turns just sitting down for 20, 30 minutes to just get, answers to their questions that, they don't want to ask in front of a group or whatever. And that's been a huge success from people getting the answers and the advice they need. I think even more so than when they bring me in to talk about, stuff for an hour. I think the impact on the employees has been significantly better because people, oh man, I can go in and just talk to this guy for 20, 30 minutes and ask him a couple questions. Yeah. And it's like just in private, and then they can choose to talk with me more if they want to another time, or they can just take the advice I gave them and go do their thing, so.
That's great. So let me ask you a couple more questions, and then if you've got anything that you want to present, like any kind of deck or whatever, you can bring it up. But
Sure.
I would love to hear some horror stories first, and then some success stories second, right? Like I'm sure you probably got both without revealing any names, obviously, right? But because I could think of a lot of both too as well. But I'm just curious, what have you seen that have been like some of like you said you're doing this because it brings you, obviously you're making money from doing this, right? It's what you do for a living. But there's some personal gratification from this. I'd love to hear just a couple of those stories if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. So horror story. So, I mean, truly one of the biggest things that we do for clients, I have a little bit of a deck I'll show, but one of the biggest things we do for clients, I've got this sketch of it, is we stand between our client and making massive mistakes, that like, that's the reality of it. People ask like, well, what do you get paid for? What do you do? And it's like, I mean, I've helped people avoid $50,000 tax mistakes. You got to have me managing a lot of money to pay me 50 grand in fees. So like that could cover years worth of, a fee, just getting some proactive advice. And that's a real life example of somebody who had come to me just after they made this decision. They had made a decision with retirement accounts there's a thing called a Roth conversion. They take money out of like their 401k and they move it to a Roth style, and it's popular and it's a buzzword and whatever. If you're reading on the internet, you would think like, oh my God, I have to do this like right now. Well, he was a GM. He makes a lot of money. I mean, a GM at a large store, a luxury store. He's doing very, very well. He's in the top.
He's probably making $500,000 a year, if not more.
Yeah, he's deep in the the top tax bracket, and then plus state income tax and things like that. You're pushing a 50% tax all in. And he took what had been a lot of money that was all in 401k and moved it into Roth because he thought that was the thing to do. And I mean, it cost him, a few $100,000 in taxes. Then that's just an example of the kind of thing that, like, if he had just laid that out to somebody, even close to somebody like me prior to making that move or getting better advice, I would have told him for free. In the first conversation, I'd have told him, you're out of your mind. Don't do that. And so that truly is the kind of thing that when we take that, even if it was 50 grand or 100 grand or $200,000 that was just gone to the government at that moment, and we extrapolate that out over growing in investments or real estate or anything else over the next 10 years, it's a lot of money. It's a huge number, and so I tell that story just as an example of, like, to me as a financial planner, that's a little bit of a horror story from a standpoint of, you were just doing so well and you were so far on track and you were ahead of where you needed to be. And then you just got set back by just not getting good advice or trying to do it on your own, sort of thing.
What about toys, right? I mean, there's gotta be clients of yours that, hey, you know what? I want to get this boat, or, my wife really wants to get this new house or whatever. Like,
yeah. So, I mean, horror story recently is I've had a lot of guys building, over COVID and everything, they built pools. You've probably talked to people. We've all know people that have built pools, and some guys have bought some really, expensive pools but spending on pools, close to what the house is worth. I mean, and unfortunately, I had a guy that I was working with that we weren't, he had just started engaging with me. We hadn't kind of gone full in. He had told me he was doing that. I had kind of said, I don't know that that's a great idea. He did it anyways. And I mean, long story short, he built a pool that was worth almost as much as what the house was, because he didn't want to move because of, what has happened with interest rates and all that. And he had just gotten promotion to GM. And then there was an acquisition and some stores got merged. And, he backed down to being a sales manager with some massive payments and home equity line of credits.
Took a haircut in his pay, probably.
He took a haircut on his pay. His line of credit is bringing him at, 9% a year right now. I mean, it's just like, that stuff sucks, that it's just not, there's no other way to put it. So I take a lot of pride in helping my clients avoid those things. And if one of the ways I do that is I am very candid with people. Somebody comes to me and they say, if they're an older individual, maybe they've been in the car business a long time, and they say, hey, I'm going to retire next year in 2 years. And they ask me what I think. I will not hesitate. It doesn't take me long to look at their numbers to be like, you can't do that. Like, I'm telling you, you can do it, but I'm telling you that you're going to run out of money really quickly. And then you're going to be in a tough spot, so that's just to get, toys. Pools, I think, is the basic. I've had a lot of guys, they're on watch kits, with all the extra money they've had, but that hasn't gone too sideways, Yeah, well,
Rolex has been pretty strong. I mean, they dipped recently, but Rolex has kind of did what used cars did for a while, right? And just about everything else during COVID. And now they've dipped a little bit. But I mean, I guess if you can afford a Rolex and you're going to use it as an investment, probably maybe not a bad idea if you can afford it, as long as you're not taking out.
It's not the work. That's what I've told. What I do tell the guys, though, well, it's an investment. I say, are you ever going to sell it? And they say no. I said, well, then it doesn't matter what it's worth once you bought it. If you're really in trouble. But the biggest thing it's been pools and houses. That's been the biggest thing recently, because everyone wants to either use their lines of credit to spend a lot on the current house, or sell it and upgrade and leave their 2 or 3% mortgage and go buy twice the size of house at 7%. And that's been the biggest things recently. To the flip side of that, you asked about success stories. So the first one that comes to mind was an individual that I started working with almost fresh when I really got going and was ramping up. And I'm thankful he put his trust in me at that time, and we're 8 years into it. And his goal at the time was to have X dollars that when his kids got to be 8, 9 years old, he wanted to be in a position that, not necessarily that he wanted to retire from the car business, but he wanted to know that if he really wanted to take a couple years off to go coach his kids' t-ball team, that he could, and we got him there. And he's at that place now where, our most recent conversation was, but right now he's at a good dealership. He's got a good schedule. It's not too brutal. He's making the money he needs to make, but he knows that if things start to get stressful with his family or he wants to spend more time with his kids, that he could afford to actually take a couple of years off and do his thing with his kids. And, the one great thing about the car business is it's not going anywhere. It'll be here, and he knows, he can get back. And so that's there's not much better than that.
I agree. I totally agree. I think that's great.
So that's an example. And then it's just people leveling up, right? When we track net worth as a benchmark of success for folks. And so getting to celebrate and hop on with someone that, is maybe 30 years old that just crossed $1 million net worth because they've been saving and being smart and still enjoying life. Like that's a lot of fun. Successful retirement. That's a great one. I mean, that's, so.
Yeah. So a couple more questions and then we can go to your deck. What do you see happening, like with the economy in general over the next 6 months or so to a year? And then like, how do you see the car business too? Like you're a pretty smart guy. So economy first, car business second.
Yeah. So economy first, for the first thing that I'll say is that I constantly remind folks that recession is a when thing, not an if thing. It's economic cycles. It's been around since the beginning of time. So when folks say, we're not going into a recession, I say, I agree. I don't think we're going into a recession tomorrow. We're not about to crash and burn tomorrow. But I'm just letting you know, it's a when thing, not an if thing. So keep that in mind, right? And in recessions, people just spend a little bit less money. They don't buy new cars as frequently. They are tighter on their bills, so on and so forth, right? So that's not to say it's happening tomorrow. It's just something that I do share with folks just as a reminder of like the conversation I have with clients is let's just keep making hay while the sun's shining. All right, let's enjoy life, but let's make sure that we know that it's not just a given to keep making money like we are in the industry. It is cyclical. It does go up and down. My thoughts on the economy right now are that, the economy and the stock market are both funny things. They tend to do the opposite of what everybody thinks it's going to do.
Yeah.
And I think in real simple terms, everyone thinks that it might just about to go sideways on any minute now, which means that we may just continue trending on a decent path for another year or so. I think it's still taking time for there's $6.1 trillion in money market funds right now. Trillion. That's a huge number. And so while we are already seeing the lower income levels, they are starting to get tighter with their money. There's still a lot of cash out there. So the impact of inflation and interest rates is still making its way into the economy and to our, into our pockets. And so I think we still have a little bit of a runway as far as just, I could see the economy continuing to do okay.
Yeah.
Next little while here. AI, obviously, it's one of those things, stock market prices aside, AI is a real thing and it's going to change productivity levels. I mean, there's going to be some good and bad things coming with it. So that could be a little bit of a boom, if you will, not a boom, but a push, but at the same time, if we look out, let's say 2 to 5 years from now, we do have a massive debt situation in the country that has to at least start getting chipped away at, right? We are going to have people that are going to have to adjust between what they're being paid and what home prices really are these days. Taxes are likely going to go up at some point in the not too distant future, whether it's the next administration or the one after that, and so I do think that at some point, based on a lot of history books that I've read and studied and things like that, it's really just kind of natural to expect that, we've been in a really good times for a while now, and we may have some not as good times coming up. It doesn't mean we're going to run into a great recession like we did back in the, early 2000s or something like that. But it does mean that how that flows to selling cars is that margins could be tighter. Floor plans may stay more expensive than what they've been used to. So commission plans get adjusted and, volume sales could get adjusted. So I think it's just fair to expect, working in the automotive industry, if you've experienced it the last couple of years, I'm a plan for the worst, hope for the best type of guy. Plan with your money, whether it's at the corporate level at the dealerships or at the personal level. Plan for your money like things are going to slow down, but work and keep doing your thing like they're not gonna. You know what I mean? That's my
Totally agree.
I could
Yeah.
expand on that for a long time.
Yeah, we could talk about a lot. I mean, AI, I don't want to get into it now, but like I think AI is going to really displace a lot of people longer term and put a lot of people out of work, or shift them into doing other things. I don't know if about you, but I use the paid version of Chat GPT all the time
Yep.
for my little consulting business, right? And it's super helpful. I'm trying to teach my clients how to use it.
Yep.
I see a lot of applications for it in the automobile business, but I mean, man, I saw a video yesterday of these robots that are like learning. Robots are learning how to do things so much faster now because of AI. I saw a robot that was like almost like balance itself on a ball, like, and was rolling it. The ball was like rolling, and it was staying balanced on it, all on its own. I mean, you think about what goes on behind that to actually make that happen. Um, and everybody thinks that like the trades are like, if I know the trades, that's going to insulate me. Man, I'm gonna tell you, I don't know based on what I'm seeing. I think you're going to see in the next couple of years, things are going to be a lot different. People are still going to
Yeah.
need cars. There's no question about it. As long as people are working, I think the car business is going to stay pretty good. But
Yeah.
I think that if you're someone who is very resistant to change or ignoring what's going on out there with technology, I think you're making a huge, huge mistake. I would be
Yeah.
paying very close attention to anything to do with AI now. I think AI is almost like it was. Remember, you're a little bit younger than me, but I remember when the internet first started, and it was like AOL and Yahoo and Craigslist and eBay, and that was a long time ago. And then there was this
I do
boom.
remember that, just for the
Yeah,
record.
yeah.
I do remember that.
But like I think we're going into one of those cycles like all over again. And
Yeah.
I think that there's going to be big opportunity, but I also think a lot of people are going to end up potentially being displaced as well. And if you look at the car business part of it, BDCs, I don't think there's going to be human beings answering the phones and handling leads in another couple of years. I think it's all going to be done by AI, if not sooner. That's just one example.
Yeah.
And there's multiple examples we can talk about. But did you have anything that you wanted to share with the audience? And before you put it up on the screen, just so we're fully transparent with everybody, like you didn't pay me to be on this show. I'm not offering, like, you're not offering any commissions or anything like that, right? And you tried. I think when I first met you, you're like, if you send me any dealers, and I'm like, I don't do this for that reason. I don't want any money. But just so we're clear, like the audience knows, like there's no money changing hands here.
Yep. Yeah. No
All
money
right.
changing hands. Just a couple of guys
Education.
who, yeah, just a couple of guys who live real close to each other, that between the two of us, we can't figure out a time to get together.
We couldn't get coffee, even though we live a half hour from each other, but we're in the doing this over
Yeah.
Zoom, which is a whole other
Yeah.
long conversation. But I will see you next week in Baltimore. But if you
Yes.
want to pull up what you have to present, we put up on the screen for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And we touched on a lot of this, but to give a little bit of visual for the folks that are watching
Sure.
and not just listening. Where's my
It should be a button that says present, and just pop it up on the screen.
share screen? There we go.
So when you're in StreamYard, there should be something that says present.
Yep. And Chrome, when we're just going to do entire screen share. All right, got me?
No, there should be something at the bottom in your browser that says present.
Yeah, no, I hit that, and then I hit entire screen. Here, I'll try it again. Let's see. Share screen. Entire screen. There we go.
No, it's not coming up here. I don't know why.
Oh, here we go. Hold on. I got it. Oh, I must have.
There we go. Okay. Cool. All right, we got it. All right, now blow that up. Put it.
Yeah.
There you go.
There we go. Is that big enough, or you want me to make it a little bit
bigger?
Put it
into like you're going to present it in a PowerPoint, and then it'll take your whole screen up.
All right.
There you go. Hit it.
All right. So yeah, so this is the name of brand again, name of our firm is Automotive Wealth, and we're for the people who make a living selling cars. I mean, those are the folks that we specialize in working with. This is just broad overview of the things that we do for the industry. We do 401k plan management, executive comp planning. We do group financial education where dealers can just bring us in to just give financial education and resources to their employees. And then we also, our core service offering is we're personal financial planners for folks that make their living in retail automotive. We touched on some of this, but we talk about the relationship between stress and performance and turnover. I mean, this was back in 2021. Employees were spending an average of 9.2 hours at work dealing with financial issues. If we translate that into, hours not spent trying to sell a car, and fast forward to the issues we're having today with inflation and interest rates and everything versus 3 years ago, I don't think that 9.2 hours has gone down. So, financially stressed employees are twice as likely to look elsewhere. 2023 survey. So I think, part of what we do is also to help employers, like you were saying, Todd, with the stress that comes with the industry. What we found and what the data tells us is that the first place a lot of folks look when they're trying to find a solution for financial stress is they look at their job and where else they can go to try and find greener grass. And, we know from working and being in the industry that, there's just only so many times as there actually greener grass at different dealerships.
Yeah, you're seeing a lot of that now too. So some of the groups that I work with, some of the dealer groups that I consult for, they ask me to interview people. So I have to log into Indeed or some other kind of platform, and I look at all the applications and I filter through them. And I'm going to tell you something. I am blown away of the number of people and the number of applications I've reviewed in the last 6 or 7 months, and people that are in higher level positions that have worked in dealerships for a long time, they're shotgunning their job application to see what's going on out there. And if I was a dealer, I'd be very, very nervous about that.
Yes, absolutely. And I think a lot of that comes from they're not sure how to solve money problems, or they're stressed, or it's marital issues, whatever it might be. And a lot of that, I mean, we find we solve a lot of problems with just engaging with people and teaching them and coaching them up and give them the answers that they need. And then they're good. They're like, oh man, I don't need to go get a new job. I needed a solution for A, B, and C. And I can get that continuing to do what I do right here, so that's huge. Financial stress, right? Just imagine what we look like, what our faces, our emotions, and everything are like when we're trying to sell a car and we're stressed out about our money. We all know it's one of the first things you get taught in sales is that it's going to show, even if you think you're hiding it, it's going to show. Right. And so, we can do resources, education, and stuff we can do as leaders. I'm a huge believer that confidence rises and stress reduces when we get people the answers they need and the advice that they need about their money. Just flipping through some of this stuff here. So
a lot of this we talked about.
We touched on a lot of this, right? So we do financial education for employees. We can do it virtually. We can do it in person. I'll also mention, speaking of virtual or in person on one-on-one planning, I've had clients that, we're dealership guys, right? We like the one-to-one interaction. For certain clients that qualify, I've flown out of town to go meet somebody just for an introductory meeting at certain, if they qualify at certain levels, just to be able to sit down and have that one-to-one conversation to see if it's a good fit and relationship and things like that. So
I would think that's important to people. You know what? Because someone's got to look in your eyes and know that they can trust you with their money.
Exactly. It's like once we get started, I have clients that live 5 minutes from the office that do Zoom for their meetings. But in that initial, stages, we all work, we kind of came up working face to face. And so that's how we like it. So that's just a unique thing that we do that just a lot of other folks don't do if it's out of town. So
absolutely.
We do 401k management. Like we talked about that, executive compensation plans. The planning stuff we do really is all inclusive. And then this is just some of those, this is some of those sketches that I like to have on
that we talked about
taxes, right? We've got some things like that, but I mean, that's really just a couple slides.
There you go. That's you go right back to that last one. right?
Sure.
Blow that up on the screen if you can. I want everybody to be able to see that. No,
Yeah.
not that one. The one with your contact info.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's the most
Oh,
important thing
yeah. There we go.
right
The
there.
QR code, even if anyone's watching, you can just boom, you can scan the QR code, it'll go right
Yeah,
to the
and again,
website.
you're here. You're in Cornelius, right? Which is in the
Yep.
Charlotte area. I'm in Mooresville.
Yep.
I know you get a lot of clients around here in this market, but
Yeah.
you can work with anybody in the country, which I think is pretty awesome.
Yep. I've got I grew up in the Baltimore area actually, so I've got clients at the dealerships up there in Maryland. I've got clients that I work with out in Denver, Colorado. I mean, yeah.
No, I think it's great, and it really is a niche too, and that's why I wanted to interview you and let people see what you do, because I think what you're doing is number one, it's definitely a need, like we talked about at the beginning, and number two, it's a niche, right? It's super important, and probably most importantly, like when I do these interviews with people, I want to put people on that if I still owned car dealerships, I would do business with, or I would use your service, or strongly consider using it. And if I did, I would 100% would have you come into my stores and have you educate people and give you the opportunity to help them manage their money because it's extremely necessary, no question about it. Well, Rob, I really appreciate your time. This has been super helpful. And if anybody wants to reach out to you, your contact info is there. I'll see you next week in Baltimore at a SodaCon. I think that's going to be a great event. I'm really looking forward to that. And this was great. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Hey, Todd, I appreciate the opportunity to join you here. I had a great time. And so I'll look, I'm excited for next week. So I look forward to seeing you there.
Sounds great, buddy. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Todd. Have a